Well, we are starting another project. It is getting close to the holidays and we want a quick quilt to put together, and this is the one we're going to do. We are going to use Hometown Holidays by Riley Blake. Love this new line by Lori Holt. So this is what we're using, and we're using quilt tree paper, which is going to help us with this process all along the way. These papers we will cut out, and let me show you. We'll take one piece of paper out at a time. These are designed to use with the layer cakes, and to use one layer cake and one piece of the paper. But we are going to make the paper go a little bit further, and we're going to use one paper for every maybe 3 or 4 pieces. You don't want to use too much because it'll be hard to cut through, but I want to make this go a little bit further so that I'll have extra paper left over to maybe make a pillow with, or a couple pillows, whatever. So we're going to do maybe 3 pieces of fabric on each paper, maybe 4, but I don't think I'm going to go beyond that. So let's go down to the table and get started. So to get started with this project, we're going to take a couple of our layer cakes out and do just 2 or 3 or 4 at a time, but I'm doing about 2 or 3. Then I'm going to take one of the papers and put it on top of it. These are designed to iron on these sheets and the fabric, and it does not leave a residue, but we're not going to iron it on. I just choose not to. You can if you want to. If it makes it easier for you, iron it on. So then it tells you cut here first, cut here second, third, fourth, and fifth. So you follow those directions and cut in the order that it tells you. So this line here is cut first. I'm going to line my ruler up, take my rotary cutter, and I'm going to cut along that line. And I'm going to do it a couple times just to make sure I went through that. And then here's my 2 sets. I'm going to put this to the side for a minute because cut 2 is here and cut 3 is here. So I'm going to line my ruler up on cut line 2, move that paper back. Then I'm going to take my ruler and cut on line 3. Then when I'm done with those, I'll put them to the side. Leave the papers with them. And then I'll come back to this set that we have to cut, and this is 4th cut and 5th cut. So I'll go to the 4th line, line it up with the ruler, cut across that line, move that piece up here. Now I've got this one left here. Line that paper up. If you iron it, then it's still on there. You don't have to worry about it. So that's up to you. Line this cut up here and cut across that cut. Now all my pieces are cut. So now we do that with the rest of the entire layer cake, and then we're going to go to the sewing table. So let's go to the sewing table. We've got all of our squares cut now into the order that it told us to cut. So I can take these off, and I'm still going to place them in the right order over here so that I remember which way they go. So this is 1, 2, 3, and these right here are the backgrounds. These 4 are the backgrounds. So I definitely want all 4 of these to match. These 2 I'm going to coordinate different. I want the trunk of the tree to be a different fabric than the tree itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull these off because this is going to be my background for the first tree. Let me pull it down so you can see it. So there's my background for the tree. Then I want to take a different one for these. So I might take like the bottom one from this stack and make it the tree. And then maybe the middle one from this one, and that the trunk. So here's my formation of my first tree. I'll put these to the side until I'm ready to make another block. But this is going to be my first block. And the order that it said, the 1, 2, 3 through 6, that's the order I'm going to sew it in. So I'm going to take 1 and put it to 2. So I'm going to put it right sides together. And I'm going to stitch down this line right here. So I'll take it to the sewing machine and I'll stitch a 1/4 inch along that side, and it'll look like this. Then I'm going to take this one to this. So I'll flip this over this and stitch down this side. Everything we're doing is going to be at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And now we've got the bottom done. We just need to iron it. Once I've got these sewn together, then I'll take this portion over to the ironing table. I've got my little iron at the house, so I'm using a regular iron here today. But iron that flat, and it looks like that. Then I'm gonna take these sides. So I'm gonna start with this one and stitch them like this, right down this seam. Again, I'm still using 1/4 inch on everything in this pattern. Make sure you keep it lined up. Cut my thread. When I open it up, it looks like this. So I'm going to iron it. Iron it open. And then it looks like that. Now the only thing I've got left to do is, let me see if you can see it better here, is sew this piece to this side. So this one, I'll flip right here and I'll stitch down this side. So I'll take it to the to the sewing machine, stitch down this last seam. When I've got that one stitched, I'll iron it, then iron it open. Then all I've got left to do is stitch the bottom to the top. So once you've got your top section sewn together and your bottom section sewn together and everything's ironed flat, you just flip this side onto this side and take it, and at this point I do pin it a little bit. I'll pin, and I'll pin this side, and then I'll pin it in the middle, and then I just sew down this seam right here. Make sure you keep it lined up good. And when you've got it sewn all the way across that seam, you'll cut the thread and do the same thing again. You'll iron this. So I iron it flat like that. Then I open it up. And then I've got my block. These blocks are you're supposed to square them up at 8-inch squares, but what I do at the end is I just see what my smallest one is and I go with that. So if my smallest one measures a 9-inch square, that's what I'm going with. If it measures 8 3/4, that's what I'm going with. I want to conserve as much fabric as I can on here to make the quilt that much bigger. So we'll do that at the end when we get to that point, but right now we're just going to continue making these blocks one after the other until we're done making all the trees. When you're sewing these up, like when you're sewing this line seam down here, you'll want to do a scant 1/4 inch. It does call for a 1/4 inch, but you want to do it on the smaller side of the 1/4 inch so that it lines up better. We will be trimming these down, so don't stress when yours don't line up just right and you have big overages on one side and under on the other. We're going to be trimming them down. So that being said, when I cut this and I iron it open, what I'm talking about is this right here. If you've got a little piece hanging over here and see how much is short down here, see that difference right there? Can you see that? That is what I'm talking about. We're going to be trimming this down. Don't stress over that. Then you'll take this one and lay it right sides together. Do a scant 1/4 inch. Scant just means you're still doing a 1/4 inch, but do it on the smaller side of the 1/4 inch. So barely a 1/4 inch. So there's that. This is hanging over a little bit. I'm not stressing on it. I'm taking this and see how this one's hanging over a little bit? Not stressing over it. I'm going to cut them down. I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it right sides together. But when I put it right sides together, I'm not going to put it here because that piece hung over. I'm going to put it to right here. So I'll sew this on. And I'm going to keep doing this until I get them all made, and then I will trim them down to the size of whatever the smallest block is. So see, when I get this square done and I've ironed it open, the piece that was under here that was a little bit lower doesn't matter anymore because it's in that seam. So now the only piece that's over was a little bit right there. When we square that up, we're going to fix that. So we are not stressing over that. So now we've got that one to our pile. We'll grab another one, sew it together. We're just going to keep this process going until we have sewn them all together, and then we'll be able to trim them down. So I'm going to keep going. In order to square your blocks up, you'll go through your whole stack and you'll measure them. And this pattern calls for an 8-inch block when it's finished. These layer cakes started at 10 inches, but our finished block will be 8 inches. Well, if you use the scant 1/4 inch and make all these things line up like that, you can get it a little bit bigger than that. In fact, mine are 9 inches. So I'm leaving them at 9 inches and going to just trim them down to 9 instead. So I've got me a square up ruler. Here's my 9 block. I'm going to line it up. And I see that, again, this one's going to measure the 9 inches at least. So I'm going to trim these 2 sides off. Get that trimming stuff away. Turn it once, turn it again. And now these 2 sides were the ones I've already done. They should line up with this 9 line on the ruler, right here and right here. And that tells me what else to trim off. So I go to this side, trim any excess off, and that side. Then I am down to a 9-inch block. Now remember, the pattern calls for it to finish at an 8-inch block. If you want to do that, that's fine. But in my book, if I can get them all to 9 inches, I've got a whole inch more per block. So yeah, I'm going to do that. I want it a little bit bigger if I can get it that way. So I'm going to line this one up same way. Line it up at 9. Trim these 2 sides. Get the excess away. Turn it twice so that now these 2 sides are the squared up sides already. Put this on my ruler at 9. Then I just cut off any excess on these two sides. Now I've got another trimmed up square. I'm gonna do this the whole way through this stack of 42 blocks. So I'll do this for all of them, then I'll come back to you and we will do the next step. Once I've squared all my blocks up, I put it on my design wall and I'm doing 6 across by 7 down. So there's my 6 across. And now I'll do the next row just so where I don't have this color above it. I don't want brown above that. So I'll space it out, I'll do my 7 rows, sew them together, and then we're done. Once you've got all of your rows of your squares on your design board or laid out however you want to do it, lay it across a bed and look at them side by side color wise so you don't have all your reds together, your greens together, that kind of thing. Then you're going to stack them up in rows. So this is one row for me. This will be the top left square of the row. So I'm going to take this row and I'm going to take the square, and I'm going to take the next square and I'm going to sew them together down this seam right here. So I'll flip this on top of here, line them up along this side and stitch down this side at a 1/4 inch. And I'm still doing a scant 1/4 inch. You don't really have to at this point, but I am. So I've got this seam sewn together, cut my thread, iron it flat, and it looks like this. Now I'll take my next one and I'll put it here, flip it on top of this, line it up again, and do the exact same thing. I'm going to do that for all 6 squares in this row. So I'm going to keep going and I'll meet you back at the end of this row. And when I say scant 1/4 inch, I don't mean so close to the edge that it's going to pop that seam. I just mean on the inside line of that 1/4 inch. So I'm still doing just a tad bit under a 1/4 inch. And I'll show you what this one looks like in just a second. See how that right there? It's a 1/4 inch, but it's barely a 1/4 inch. So it's not, you don't want to do way out here at the edge of the fabric and it's going to bust it open. Just barely a 1/4 inch. Then I'm going to iron it open. It looks like this. I'll go to the next one. I'll do the same thing and I'll meet you back. I've got my row done, so now I need to attach it to my other rows. Some of my rows I've already done, so I'm gonna take this row here that I've already done, and I want this row down here. So I'm gonna lay it like I want it, which is right there. See, this row's already sewn to the row above it, so I've got this row that I want to sew to this row. So I'll take it right sides together, pin it down this row, pin one right there, come to this seam and come to this seam, put them together, roll them up to where they meet, pin it, and I'll do that down every seam down this row. Take it about a 1/2 inch from the top, line up that seam, roll it up, and I'm going to do this all the way down the row. Line up that seam, roll it till the top gets there, and pin it. ready to sew it. And I'll go all the way across this row. I'm going to keep sewing along this row and I'll come back in a minute. Once you get your rows sewn together, they'll look like this. So now I think what I'll do is take it back to the shop and add maybe one, maybe two borders. I don't know yet. But this is what the quilt top looks like before I add my borders. I hope you liked this. I hope you try it. It's a fun one to do. Goes by pretty quick too. And well, it's fun. So you guys try it. Check out our stuff on SewCharmingQuiltShop.com. We've got all the supplies. We've got the links in the description below. And well, have fun with it. So until next time, you guys have a great afternoon and happy quilting.